Hello and welcome to the second edition of Fantasy Football School with the Tartan Touchdown. I am your host, Brian, and I am joined today again by, I'm joined by somebody who knows something about fantasy. So Stu's back, and I allowed Dan on. So Stu, how you doing, mate? How's it going?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, things are going pretty well for me here. What about yourself, Brian?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Dan, how are you? Well, we're feeling pitiful for you because, you want to win at a fantasy thing. You want to win something, so we thought we'd tutor you and we'd bring you along.
Brian, I think it was me and Stu in the final of our fantasy league last year, so I think maybe I should be teaching you something here.
That's not the point.
How many championships do you and I have between ourselves here?
It's between us, Stu. It's over the last 4 years, something like 5, between over 2 leagues. Yeah. Right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Now, this is the second episode in our Fantasy Football School. So last time round, we talked you through all of the weird and wonderful ways that fantasy football works. So the rules, the rosters, some of the odd things that can come up, and all the things that help make fantasy a great laugh and they help to make it fun and interesting. This time round, we are going to go through actual players and we're going to give you our takes on who are the studs, the staples, and the sleepers for each of the main offensive position groups in fantasy. Now, before we dive too deep into anything, it's worth just talking about. I'm aware. I've done that weird teacher thing and I've made up my own labels because that's what I do. So it's worth talking about what this is and why is working on a tier-based system better than just going purely by a numerical ranking, going by ADP. Now, if you did listen last time round, if you didn't listen last time round, listen, go and pick that pod episode up. But we talked about what actually is ADP. So it's average draft position, and it basically means whatever your platform is, whatever you're playing fantasy, it's going to take every draft that happens, and it's going to just average out wherever that player gets drafted. And it tells you, it gives you that information so you can say, right, everyone else that's drafting thinks that this player is worth a second round pick or a fifth or a whatever. And it gives you a bit of information. But if you dive into that, there can be big, big differences depending on your position groups. If you've got the option of drafting a stud wide receiver and instead you take a sleeper running back, probably a poor choice. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So what actually are these 3 categories that I've made? Studs, also known as Brian. No, sorry, even I can't believe that. So these are your true difference makers at a position. These are the players that if they are on your team, you should be outscoring most players at that position every single week, no matter what. Unless one of these guys goes down hurt, you should be pulling in the top running back, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, whatever score every week. Your staples, they might not be the sexy picks. They might not be top of the tree, but they're consistent. You know that you can slot these players into your team and they are not going to drop a donut on you. They are not going to give you nothing. You're going to see production out of these guys. And then last, every fantasy manager's favourite, the sleeper. The infamous sleeper pick. Someone who is drafted well outside the top tier for the position, but you know, you believe, you have faith that they are the next big thing. That wide receiver 44 is going to finish as one of the 6 best wide receivers in the league because you know who they are and you know how special they can be. These are guys that, yes, you draft them well outside the top end of their position. So, for top end, for quarterbacks, tight ends, we're talking about the top 12. Somebody you draft outside of that range, but you think they've got the upside to outperform that and they crack into those upper echelons of production. For running backs, you're talking outside your top 24 guys. Wide receivers, actually, this is a bit of an aside. I never appreciated, before I started prepping for this show, how many wide receivers there are. There's loads. There's hundreds of them. So outside the top 36 or so wide receivers, and they're the guys that you think that they are it, they're gonna come good. So what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to be taking you through. Well, I'm not gonna. These two are going to be taking you through most of it. I only get one pick, and there's two of them and one of me. I'm going to be taking you through our studs, our staples, and our sleepers at every position group. And there's only one place to start in American football. It's the most important position in sports, and it is kicker. No, it is quarterback. Sorry, Stu. This is where for everybody listening that Stu has an irrational love for all things kickers. But no, we are going to start with our quarterbacks. And you know what? Because I am a complete megalomaniac, I'm going to start with me. And my stud pick for quarterback for the 2025 NFL season, it actually makes me a little sick to say this, by the way. It is Lamar Jackson. Yes, I am picking a Raven. Yes, I'll get over my Brown fan bias because he's just outrageously good at football. This is the one, and it's something that comes up with two of our three quarterback picks, not all three of them. He is the one of the top of the top tier dual threat running back, dual threat quarterbacks. No, I'm not saying Lamar's a running back again. He does it all. He does it in the air. He does it on the ground. He is one of the safest picks in all of fantasy at any position. He is an absolute hero. We were looking at him last year. He's currently sitting there. He's QB2, average draft position, second quarterback off the board. You can pick him up and towards the tail end of your second round in most drafts. Last year, you look at his stats for last year, you look at the fantasy points for all quarterbacks. Lamar, now this will vary slightly in your league scoring, but in our league scoring, Lamar Jackson dropped 489 points over the year. Second was Josh Allen, and he had 430. So there was a little bit of a difference. You had Lamar, you were winning weeks. He was primo number one quarterback last year, and I fully believe that he's going to do it again, just because nothing's changed in Baltimore. Stu, we'll come to yourself, mate. Who is your stud quarterback, and why should everyone draft him?
I'm going a bit with the home team bias here, but I am going with Joe Burrow from the Cincinnati Bengals. And my reasons for drafting him was, or suggesting him as a stud, is just look at what he does when he's even remotely healthy and what he did last season. The guy was in the running for the MVP. I can understand why he didn't win it. He explained it eloquently himself. Typically it's an award that goes to a guy that is on one of the better teams in the league. Bengals didn't make the playoffs. That's on them, including himself. I like to see that he kind of, he pulled himself into that blame as well, maybe unjustifiably so. But, you look at his numbers from last year. He's not as much of a runner. I will admit that. And that does, knock him down a little bit, because I can admit that Lamar Jackson is an absolute freak, and especially for fantasy purposes. Like the guy does do it all. But, you look at Josh Burrow, 43 TDs, did have 9 interceptions, but 4,918 passing yards. The guy was an absolute monster. Like, every week he was putting up big points, apart from that first week of the season against the Pats. You saw what Joe Burrow did against the Ravens. So he can do it against top teams. He's kind of matchup proof. And really, if anything, when he plays against those top teams, because the Bengals typically end up playing from behind, he's going to be throwing it even more, because he knows he has to get that team moving down the field. So just for that whole thing of being matchup proof, the guy is out to prove something. And also this season, fingers crossed, so far, he's healthy heading into camp. And this is the first time in his entire career that he's entered an NFL preseason camp without some sort of knee injury, wrist injury, whatever else. So I'm tipping him to be even better this year than he was last year.
See, that's interesting that you point that out. As you see that is the most important thing to mean that Joe Burrow is going to have incredible production this year. I think you've actually missed something that's far, far more important. That means that it's likely Joe Burrow's going to have incredible production, and that's that Trey Hendrickson still hasn't signed a contract, so your defense is still going to be absolute dug meat. So Joe Burrow's going to need to chuck for 40 points a game, or you're going to go 0-17.
thought what you were going to say there, Brian, was more that Joe Burrow has all his weapons back, and the O-line should, in theory, be better. Although
He's gonna need them.
our O-line being better is kind of a relative thing, really. But still, there's consistency.
Joe Burrow needs to be elite because as things stand right now, I could score against the Cincinnati defense. Right, moving on. Dan, who have you got as your stud quarterback of your stud of all QBs?
I mean, I can't disagree with much you guys said, but truth being told, we all know the first quarterback is going to come off the board in any fantasy draft this year is Josh Allen. It doesn't matter who, Lamar Jackson, elite athlete, Joe Burrow can throw the ball all day long. Josh Allen is still going to be the first quarterback off the board in any fantasy draft this year. He's just a machine. He's not got the legs of Lamar Jackson, but he will put his body on the line and he will get you those yards. We've seen the Bills get into short field, like third and fourth and short, and Josh Allen is just taking the ball and just burrowing right through the offensive line and defensive line and getting the yards. He's going to put up the points this year. The Bills' window is well and truly open. We've seen what he can do last year. And what I will say, I don't know if we'll go to this, Brian, I'm going to jump in and say this. If you're drafting in the second round of your draft, round about mid draft, round about 20, 21, 22, and there is no elite wide receiver running back there, take Josh Allen. That's where you want to take him. If you don't, you're not going to get him. So the next person will take him. So yeah, Josh Allen, first quarterback off the board in any fantasy draft this year.
And that is exactly what Sleeper has to say about it as well. For the sake of this and for everybody listening, that is in terms of ADPs and all the rest of it. This is everything that we're using today is based on Sleeper's ADP. It's accurate as of like an hour and a half ago when I did this. So yeah, Josh Allen, indeed, he is QB number one off the board. And yeah, you are currently tracking again middle of the second, which is pure value. Right, moving into the interesting ones because they aren't quite as sexy. They're not as sexy, these guys. But if you miss out, so as Dan's saying, let's say that you go wide receiver. So you don't get Josh Allen, you don't get Lamar, you don't get Jaden Daniels. Who are you going to go for late? Now, do you know what, Dan, you're back on the clock purely because I just want to hear somebody talk about this, man, because it makes me happy on the inside. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, so my staple receiver is someone who basically took me to the championship game last year, where unfortunately Stu blew out the water on the day, but it was Baker Mayfield. It made me just ridiculous last year. I mean, over 4,000 yards through the air was just, and a team like the Bucks, probably under, nobody knew where they were going to go last year, nobody knew what they were going to do. Baker just took that team on his back and just went for it, and he's just as good a weapons this year as he did last year, and he's just going to throw a ridiculous amount of points again this year. So yeah, Baker Mayfield's my staple, and I reckon that when it heads into quarterbacks, you need to kind of judge it on your draft and where you pick up potentially. If you're going to pick up Baker as your starting quarterback, you probably take him around about the 6 or something like that. But some of these other drafts where you might be taking him as a second string quarterback, you might get him a wee bit deeper, depends on how your draft goes. But he's well and truly got enough behind him to get you to that championship game because he's done it for me last year.
Right, so this is one where I threatened that I was going to do this to you two before we came on here, because Baker is an interesting one, because yeah, Baker's currently 7th quarterback off the board. You're picking him up towards the base of the ADP, tail end of the 6th. Are you going to pick up Baker or his teammate, Godwin? Godwin, he's on puppet now, but his training camp up. It doesn't really count. Godwin's coming back.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're doing with your team. Do you know what I mean? If Baker Mayfield's going to be your QB1 for your team, then you take him because he's at the 6th round. If Baker Mayfield's still sitting there, because you're not going to get your Joe Burrows, your Josh Allens, you're not going to get them in the 6th round. They'll be gone. So if Baker Mayfield is there in the 6th round and you don't have a quarterback yet, I'd be taking him all day long.
Okay, it's interesting. It is what it is because you push it on even further, and so you can look deeper. And there's a player that where I come into it because I do love Baker. I love him so much. He is possibly my favourite NFL player of ever because he's just fabulous. But when you look at value for QBs, he's for a deeper quarterback. He's towards the expensive end of kind of deeper, I suppose, at the 6th. You push yourself off into the middle of the 8th round. This is where me and Stu both exist in this kind of range with both of our staple picks. Jared Goff. Yeah. He is the most vanilla of all like NFL players. Like, he is the tapioca of the NFL quarterback world. But he is really, really reliable. And it is one of these ones, you look at Jared Goff over the last 4 years where he's been in Detroit. Yeah, his first year in Detroit, okay, that wasn't great. But then since that, he has finished as quarterback 10, quarterback 7, quarterback 6. You look at picking that up as deep as you're getting Goff, he's such a value. I think he's absolutely worth it. On the notion of absolute values, Stu, you want to talk to us about your pick for your staple quarterback? Now, bearing in mind that Call of Duty hasn't released yet.
Yeah, that kind of gives a spoiler for who I'm going with here, and it is, of course, Kyler Murray from Arizona. My reasoning with him, and I did look quite hard at Goff, and I think that's actually a really worthy pick. Baker, I also do enjoy, despite him being a former Cleveland Brown. He's obviously a fun guy, and it's nice to see him doing really well with Tampa as well. And I enjoy their wide receivers. So that's why, you know what, all power to them. They're an NFC team, so I can't actually really dislike them. But yeah, for Kyler Murray, I look at him and I go, you know what, he is one of those guys that gives you it all. He can run with the ball. He can make the big throws. Sure, he might be a bit shorter, and there are all those memes of him looking like a toddler that stole a phone when he's running right back. The thing that really sells me on the upside for him this year is he's had a bit longer to work with Marvin Harrison Jr., who is a top wide, or should be a top wide receiver in the league. The guy did show flashes last year. He has Trey McBride, who is another top weapon. Then they have the running game in Arizona, like James Conner. Sure, he's getting older, but he just continues to be that workhorse. So I look at Kyler Murray, and my thing is just that value in terms of he's sitting there in the 8th round. If you can go early on, go a couple of wide receivers, maybe grab Trey McBride early, grab some running backs, and then your starting quarterback is Kyler Murray. I think he could put up more points this year than he did last year, and even then he finished, QB 10, I want to say, Brian?
Yep, QB 10 on the year.
QB 10 for me, and he was only a few points behind Sam Darnold, who obviously had a great year in Minnesota. So
it's the big bit with Kyler. Is that rushing upside? Kyler's worst rushing year happened 2 years ago, 2023, and he rushed for 244 yards, right? Now, Kyler, he only played 8 games that year, right? Yeah, 8 games, he pulled in 244. Last year was Baker's best rushing year of his career, and he pulled in 378. So you get Kyler on a year he can run, yeah, it could be money. Right, onto the deep ends, right, and Stu, you can kick us off with this one, because you've...
Before we get to the sleepers, sorry, just kind of come back with some. I hope I haven't. I'm not going to jump in. Any of you guys have got here, but I don't think there will be sleepers. So just we're talking about the 8th round and the value that is there. If you're looking at the ADP, obviously we're using sleeper as an example, but it's usually good kind of setting of where the leagues are going to be. There's some ridiculous quarterbacks available deep in these fantasy drafts. I mean, people like you've got Dak Prescott, you mentioned earlier on. Somebody getting Dak in the 9th round in a draft is ridiculous. You've also got people like Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, and CJ Stroud available by ADP very deep in your draft. So again, if you go back to that strategy, you've not picked the quarterback early, then you're going to get some good value near the end of your draft on these type of players that will get you points, assuming you stay fit.
Yeah. Can we all appreciate now? This is great for everybody listening to know that Stu and Dan do not know who each other's picks are. They are completely ignorant to one. I know everybody's picks because I'm the host and I'm more important. These two don't know, and Dan actually managed to do that without naming either mine or Stu's picks for the sleepers. So I applaud you for your...
That's because none of those 4 are sleeper quarterbacks. That's why I thought it's a safe bet to come in and say that, because the 4 of them could easily be... You could potentially put them in studs on their best day. Dak and Justin Herbert on their best day, you could put as a stud quarterback.
Absolutely.
They 100% are in that kind of middle staple range. So if they're available and you're getting near 7, 8, 9 your draft, you've won a watch if you can get one of the 4 of them.
Yeah. No, Dan, I would totally agree, especially on the Dak. I think, because I'm seeing him sometimes not go until the 10th or 11th round in drafts, just because people have the fear of the entry, but we're only a year and a bit removed from him being in the running for the MVP.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're a Cowboys fan, so you know that better than most folk. But you look at that situation, the O-line should be better. He's got CeeDee Lamb. They now have George Pickens. Ferguson, like who's a tight end, like just signed his big deal literally this morning as well. So the Cowboys clearly believe in him. And hopefully your rushing game should be better this year, and we'll maybe touch on that later on.
I mean,
Yeah.
we know Dak Prescott's from 20 yards. I mean, Dak.
Well, the one to end the Dak loving, because unfortunately I am completely on board with this. See if you look at Dak's fantasy finishes on years where he isn't hurt, or years where he plays the full season. So we're going to take out last year. We take out 2022. He only played 12 games. 2020 only played 5. All the years where he plays whole year, he is quarterback. This is going back from 2016. Quarterback 7, quarterback 10, quarterback 2, quarterback 8, quarterback 3. The upside is there. And yeah, you look at Dak in the position that he's going in your drafts, pick 123 overall. Value. Right, on to real values as well. Same kind of idea. Stu, you've spoken about this quarterback quite a lot to me. You've mentioned him on the first episode as well, actually. Who is your sleeper pick for your QB?
Okay, so my sleeper pick, and I was actually looking at Dak in there, and I just went, I can't actually include him in this list because he's not a sleeper. He's just horrifically undervalued. The guy that I am actually picking for sleeper, again, who I feel like is actually being completely undervalued as well, but we will class him as a sleeper, is Geno Smith. So he's just moved to the Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously a building team, so that's one of the things where, previously he was playing with Seattle. Sure, the O-line was made of paper. It may have been worse than the Bengals O-line points last year. But he did have DK Metcalf. He had, Tyler Lockett. They had, Smith and Nigma as well. He had good receivers there. So there is an element of he's now moving to the Vegas Raiders. They're building, how's he going to do building up that rapport with a new set of receivers, because he's had a fairly consistent set to work with before. But he has Brock Bowers, who is one of the top receiving tight end options in the league. He also has Jacoby Myers, who, for an undrafted free agent, walked into New England Patriots, became their WR1. Maybe not hard to do, depending what they had there. But, I mean, let's just quickly look at Myers, from last year. Where was he in the kind of the grand scheme of things? Like, I know he did. You can maybe pull the numbers up there, Brown, while I'm kind of ranting away.
I'll pull them up. So Jacoby Myers came in last year. He finished as, for fantasy, wide receiver 19. He pulled in, he had a 1,000-yard season. He had 4 touchdowns. These are things that you would expect positive regression. He's got a better quarterback now. Geno is not the sexiest quarterback pick in the league, but he's a good QB. He's a perfectly good NFL level starting quarterback. And yeah, you would expect all of his receivers. I was about to say you would expect all of his receivers' production to take an uptick. Imagine Brock Bowers with an uptick in production.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
And also the thing is as well is sure, he's not exactly Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson in terms of his rushing, but Geno Smith, he did. He ran for 272 yards. That's only 50 yards less than Patrick Mahomes last season. So, Geno does have a little bit of rushing upside as well. So, you can't knock that either. So I'm just looking at him saying, you know what, if you're looking late in your draft for a backup quarterback, or somebody who maybe if your first guy goes down, you're not going to be hung out to dry by putting Geno in, at least you're going to get some solid points every week. So that's my choice for sleep.
And that's actually the exact same theory behind my choice. This is good because me and Dan have actually picked, and you can play the split the difference maker, because we have picked 2 quarterbacks who are quarterback 18 and 19 off the board, respectively. So mine, and it is exactly your theory. I'm thinking you go somebody kind of reasonably decent. You go Baker early, you may pick up Josh Allen or something like that, and they go down. Who have you got on your bench that's going to potentially show something to step up? As much as it galls me to say it, because I really don't like the Patriots, Drake May. Yeah. Drake May put up a year last year where he showed in his play, he showed that he could be is he the next Tom Brady? Well, I'll let history figure that one out. Is he better than what the Patriots have been rolling out at quarterback for the last year or so? Yes. By a massive distance. And yeah, I believe I'm on board with Drake May. I think he's somebody that could take a serious step next year. I think he benefits from I don't think that he's a quarterback that the league's looking at right now. And, oh my God, we got to watch out for Drake May. I don't think he's going to find DC's really aggressively game scripting him out of the game. When you're playing against the Pats, they didn't have a good year last year. Most people don't think they're going to have a great year this year either. I don't know what the Vegas line is on them for the under, but most people will be taking the under on the Pats. I've just got a sneaky feeling that we could be sitting here at this time next year saying, yeah, Drake May is going to be a top 12 quarterback. Of course he is. He's currently sitting, as I say, quarterback 18 off the board. You are picking him up at the start of the 12th round in your draft. It's no free, but it's near enough free. On to the next one, and on to Dan and Stu. So you can tie break between these two. So Dan, you want to tell us, I've already given away that we're back to back. So he's QB 19 off the board. You're currently picking him up at the 137th pick, 1205. Who you got?
If you're looking at this guy in the 12th round, is a quarterback. He is going to be QB1 for his team this year, so he is going to pick up the points. And it's JJ McCarthy. We all expected big things from JJ McCarthy last year, and obviously he got injured. And I think he's going to benefit from what I'll call the CJ Stroud effect, where nobody knew what to expect from him in his first year. Yep. Everybody thought he's going to be good, but DC's couldn't scheme against him. I think JJ McCarthy's going to have the benefit of he's sat basically for a year, learning the playbook, learning the team, but not having DC's watching him doing it. So I think he's going to benefit from that. Sitting on the sideline, learning the playbook, watching behind Sam Darnold last year, watching what the team does. And he was made for that Vikings team. The team was built for him, and that's why they drafted him. So he's going to have that advantage of an extra year of learning. And I think he's going to have a phenomenal year because he's going to be QB1 for the Vikings. So with the weapons he's got, he's going to put up the points. It's just the consistency piece that we're not sure how consistent he's going to be over the season. But he'll put up the yards and he'll get the touchdowns, but especially if he's thrown to Justin Jefferson, he'll get the points for you. So if you're getting to the 12th round and you're suddenly scrambling around to pick up that defence, to pick up a kicker, don't pick up JJ McCarthy if you don't have another quarterback in your lineup, because we alluded to earlier on, if your QB1 goes down injured and you've got JJ McCarthy on your bench, you're absolutely laughing.
And there was a lot of chat there about how he's going to be QB1 for the Vikings. QB1. Are you trying to disrespect Sam Howell?
Disrespecting you? By even thinking that Sam Howell was going to start for the Vikings is disrespect. Every man that's watching this.
I'll be honest, I had to Google their depth chart. I couldn't remember who the backup was. I seen Sam Howell and it made me laugh. So then tell you what, Stu, you are on the clock, right? You are on the clock. It is the 12:04, right? You're 12:04, and you've got Joe Burrow. You drafted him early. You picked him up. You're in the market for your backup QB. Who are you going with? Drake, May, and JJ are your two options. Who are you picking?
You know what? I'm actually going to go with the slightly less safe option. And I realise both of them are fairly new to the league. Drake May was a rookie last year, but I'm going with JJ McCarthy. And I say less safe only in that we haven't seen him play a single snap in the NFL yet.
Yeah.
I just remember how good he was for Michigan and making them relevant as a program, or being part of that relevancy as a program again. And I just look at the weapons and things he has around him, and the fact that Vikings O-line made Sam Darnold look like a world beater at points last year.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam. I have no faith in Sam Darnold this year. It's probably the other thing I should say, but yeah, JJ McCarthy, I would have absolutely zero problem picking him. I do think Drake May will be good this year, but I'm just picking McCarthy over Drake May if I'm on the clock, and those are my options.
Totally. Right, let's move on to our next position group, chaps. So we are moving, this is actually probably my least favourite position group in fantasy. I absolutely hate drafting running backs. I always feel that I'm really bad at it, and whoever I draft is guaranteed to have both of their ACLs explode. But we are going to talk about running backs. We're going to open with our studs. And do you know what, Dan? I'm going to open with you, mate, because you've actually selected the lowest ranked running back of the three of us, but you have probably selected the most hotly talked about running back of the three of us. So take it away, mate. Who you got and why you got them?
Going Ashton Genty, he's just ridiculous. He's
really good.
He's a running back who's built for the NFL. I don't know if anybody watched College Bowl last year, but he absolutely tore up the boys. 2,600 yards last year. It was on record almost beaten every record possible in college football for rushing last season, do you know what I mean? But he's going into a programme where we've mentioned Geno Smith already, who have got a steady quarterback. We know Geno can throw the ball, but he's not going to have to throw the ball because he's got Gentry beside him. You see situations where running backs go in positions where the team is a throw-first offence. With Geno Smith there, I don't think that's what the Raiders are going to be. It's not like he's, like you mentioned, he's a good quarterback, but he's not that elite quarterback where they're going to throw the ball more. He's getting in a position where I think he is going to tear up for the Raiders. I think also beyond the Raiders, as much as all the hype coming out of the draft about him being the best running back there is, going into the Raiders, I think puts him a bit under the radar in terms of his team. There's not a lot of expectations on the team to perform. So he might get away with the spotlight not being on him as much as some other players that go to other teams, which I think might help him as well in his first year in the NFL. But I still expect him to absolutely blow up this year. He's going to go probably tail end of the first round in your fantasy drafts again. Probably not the first quarterback off the board, probably 4 or 5. But if he's there at the end of the first round, he's definitely worth picking up.
He is an absolute, and I suppose that's the big thing as well. With him being, so he's ranked currently as running back 5, and that is his average draft position is the 112. He is your player on the turn of your draft. You are grabbing Ashton Gentry and a top wide receiver, a top tight end. It's such a great way to start it. Stu, you're going to tell us about yours. You've got somebody it's a wee bit higher profile, and then I'm going to take us to not quite the top of the tree in RB rankings, but very near it. So talk to us about who your pick is. I've actually got a question about your pick, to be fair.
Yeah, okay, so my pick, I'm going with Detroit Lions, Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm taking him as my stud in here. He's just a guy I feel like he does it all. He's in a high-powered offense. He plays against, because he's in the NFC, sometimes gets softer matchups, like even when they're playing against equivalent teams. The guy does everything in terms of he'll catch the ball and run with it, as well as kind of just giving you rushing. He's helped out, and this is the thing, I see this as a positive. Gibbs and Montgomery do have that 1-2 punch thing going on as well. And as much as you can feel, maybe that eats into the snap share, on the counter argument to that, I would say is it keeps both of them fresh, and it means that they can be both used in ways that they should be and in plays that they should. So for me, I just look at Jahmyr Gibbs, and when comparing him to those other top running backs, Gentry, I do really love Dan as well, but I just know Jahmyr Gibbs has done it in the NFL so far, but he's also not that old yet. So there's not as many miles on his legs as some of the other top running back choices. So Brian, what's your question about Gibbs?
My question was going to be, are you worried about David Montgomery? And you've been really irritating and answered it before I got to ask it.
No. That was part of my skill, was I had to get it in there because I also really like David Montgomery. And no spoilers, but for me, I did not pick him as my staple, although I considered him. And I just thought it would be quite funny to have a 1-2 punch alliance in the thing, but I just went, I'll stay away from that. But yeah, no, Jahmyr Gibbs, I love the guy. I like what he does. He's electric and good hands, and also just a very good running back on a good team.
The kind of thing that you think when you're looking at Gibbs, you do just kind of look. So what I've actually quickly grabbed is Monty's stats for last year. He had 12 touchdowns last year. So he really was, he was pounding a lot of them in, the short yardage touchdowns, he was pounding them in. Gibbs had 16. Monty goes down. Gibbs becomes unplayable. When Gibbs becomes the everything back, it's wild.
He also had another 4 receiving touchdowns as well, though. So Gibbs got to 20. One a year.
Gibbs had 20. Monty had 12, though, that if he wasn't about, you would say probably go to Gibbs. Right. So for me, so that was running back 3 off the board. I'm going running back 2 because sneaky. I do not see Saquon repeating it. He would be running back 1. Bijan. It is Bijan. I can't believe I'm about to say this. I have some amount of faith in Atlanta. I actually think Atlanta might not be terrible.
Hey, you're me from last year.
I know. It's just like, I feel bad for saying it.
I think on every preview podcast that I was on, Dan, I think I was just bigging up Atlanta, mainly because of the defence, and I still stand by that. I love the Atlanta defence, but we should also point out, Brian, it's Bijan, not Bijan.
Yes. Sorry,
he
quite right,
confirmed
quite
that
correct. Well,
on an interview yesterday. He says for everyone, just I think he's fine with people saying Bijan, but it's Bijan.
no, that's easy. We should make an effort. So yeah, but yeah, no. So he finished last year's running back 3 on what was not an incredible team. And he was still running back 3 off the board. He just shy of 1,500 yards, another 430 through there. He's 23. He's got everything in front of him in a team that I don't know, do I believe Michael Penix Jr. is the next thing? I'm not so sure. Do I believe he's better than last year's Kirk Cousins? Yes. So it's an offense that I see taking a step forward, and we all love picking up running backs on good offenses. Running backs on good offenses are money. Right, we're going to shift this one into Staples. Oh, no. Questions?
Without spoiling wide receiver bits when we get to that, Bijan is projected to go 4. Surely there's a temptation there to go, if you're not, even at the 1, he's got to have a temptation to take one of the top 3 picks, surely.
Bijan is not a bad first overall pick. I would, if I was sitting at 101, would I take Bijan over Chase? Probably not. Would I think poorly of anybody who did? Nah. Perfectly reasonable pickup anywhere. If he falls beyond 4, it's robbery.
Yeah.
It's pure robbery to get him any deeper than 4 in your league. Says me, who in our main league is currently sat with the 6th overall pick. Just a thought, folks. Moving on to Staples, and I'm stealing. I'm actually amazed I got this staple. I was thoroughly expecting Stu to have this. He is a player that served me exceptionally well last year. It served me well in a couple of years, actually, in a couple of different leagues. And he breaks the rule of you want running backs that are on good teams, because it is Chuba Hubbard, running back for the Carolina Panthers. Everyone was absolutely terrified. We were convinced that Jonathan Brooks was in. That was it. His team gone, yes, he's starting the year on IR. We know. As soon as he's back, it's his team. Nope. Well, he got hurt again. But even that aside, it doesn't look like anybody's laying a glove on him. Chuba also got paid. They gave the man a bag. So, good for him. And he is Stu's hometown hero. But yeah, no, I think he is exactly the kind of running back. You are getting him tail end of the 4th, start of the 5th. He is your 0 RB running back. That is how I look at him. If I have went my first 3 rounds, I've went wide receiver, tight end, or wide receiver, quarterback, wide receiver. Then I pick Chuba up as my RB1. I'm happy enough with that. I can live with Chuba as my RB1 in my team. I think he's got absolutely the production in him to get towards what he did last year. Last year was just shy of 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, little bit in there, not much. I think he's the epitome of nice and safe and stable. And no, I don't think Rico Dowdle is going to steal his lunch money.
I think Rico Dowdle was a sleeper last year, and that kind of bit me in the back, didn't it?
To be fair, Rico Dowdle actually finished not bad last year.
Yeah. Sleepers are for debt stands. There's no shame in picking Rico Dowdle.
That was the home field advantage pick there. That was blinkered.
Oh, but you backed the Cowboys ground game. That was your first mistake. In a minute, Stu. So, do you know what, Dan? Right, Dan, I'm going to come to you for your staple pick because I like and loathe your pick with absolute equal measure because I have benefited and been burned by this player over the last couple of years. Who's your staple pick, mate?
So I have been absolutely brilliant this guy over the last couple of years because I've had him the last 2 years. It's Jonathan Taylor. He's the epitome of again. He's probably not one that's sitting on the borderline of it. You could put him in that top level quarterbacks because of his production. In terms of elite talent, maybe not on the same level, but in terms of production, 100%. He is on a team that at the moment we still don't know what's happening at quarterback. Anthony Richardson might be too tired, which means Daniel Jones comes in. And if you're relying on Daniel Jones throwing the ball for you next season, you are in trouble. Jonathan Taylor is going to see an absolute massive amount of production next season. Behind them in the draft, in the depth chart, is got Khalil Herbert, which is again good enough running back, but he's not going to get you the production. He's probably not going to challenge Taylor for most of the yards. So if you can get Jonathan Taylor at the tail end of the second on that turn, that tail end of the second, beginning of the third, you've got on to an absolute winner getting him that late, because that's where he's projected to go at the moment. I think he's projected to go 24, 25, I think. So if he's still available at that point, you've won a watch by getting Jonathan Taylor at the end of the second, beginning of the third.
Now, this is where my worry with Taylor is, right? And this is where I say I've been burned by him. Last 3 years. Now, last year wasn't as bad. He managed 14 games last year. Year before that, it was 10. Year before that, it was 11. He loves an injury. And it is, because don't be wrong, when he's on, I actually think you've maybe done him a disservice. I think when he's on the field in terms of talent, he is one of the top running backs in the league. I think in terms of pure talent, he's incredible. Just not in the field. You know what I mean? I had him in a couple of leagues in that 2023 season, and I hated the fact that we didn't play in week 18 when he dropped 45 points on Houston. But it is that, where it's that worry of, is he going to be on the field? And yeah, you can never legislate for injuries, but he does seem to get hurt more than anybody else. Stu, it's been far too long, by the way. It's been far too long since Stu's made a homer pick. So, Stu.
Okay, and this is literally a homer pick, because obviously Chuba's the local guy from Sherwood Park next to Edmonton, but I'm taking another Canadian. I'm going with Chase Brown from the Bengals. My thinking with him is that after he displaced Zach Moss as a starting running back for the Bengals from about week 4, week 5 on last year, he was a top 10 running back pretty much every single week from then out. He was top 3 a few times as well. All of the variable from the Bengals this year, despite bringing back P. Ryan and obviously Moss returning from injury as well, is that Chase Brown is going to be the guy, and he's going to be a 3-down back kind of thing. Like, they're going to be using him in every situation. He has good hands, so he's been trusted more for receiving. Perrine probably will eat into that a little bit, but Burrow seems happier throwing to him now, or as the season went on, that progressed. The guy's a good running back. Obviously, part of it's down to hoping the offensive line is a little bit better again, but it gives the Bengals that option of running the ball rather than just chucking it every single time, which I realise since my Joe Burrow, air yards thing from earlier on that I kind of predicted might go up this year. But yeah, no, I love a bit of Chase Brown, partly fueled by the fact that he is a Canadian, and I love watching Canadians do what they do in the NFL.
He's such a good. I never realised. I knew he was good last year. I've never actually appreciated quite how good. Over last year, after week 4, from the Carolina game onwards, Chase Brown gave you fewer than 20 fantasy points 3 times. Every other week he was giving you at least 20 points, and he only gave you less than 15 once against Cleveland. Remember, Stu.
Great defense.
But fantastic pick. Great running back. Sorry, he is the highest ranked running back in our staples category. He's coming out of running back 12. Getting him at the start of the third is an absolute. He's not. Taylor's running back 10. Taylor's running back 10. Taylor's running back 10. But do you know, if I do the kind of devil's advocate for similar to what I had Stu do in the last round with quarterbacks, if I was forced to pick between Taylor and Brown, I think if I'm sitting in the middle of them, I think I'd probably pick Brown, because I'm more confident in his health.
Okay, I love him as well, but I would be tempted by Taylor if he was there.
Yeah, they're two great options.
As you pointed out with the injuries, and as I always like to say, the best ability is
availability. You'd think we'd done this before. Right, let's move on to our sleeper running backs, guys. I'm going to get mine over and done with. It's a wee bit like tearing a plaster off. I just want to do it quickly. My sleeper running back is the single, individual, only part of this offense I would be willing to consider taking any part of this year in fantasy. And it is a terrible, terrible running back. But he's the only running back on the team. It's DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift with the Bears. No, I am not a Roshan believer, for all of the people listening, screaming at their podcast server. Swift is the only running back in that team. The Bears had opportunity to go out and to try and add J.K. Dobbins, to try and add Nick Chubb, to go and actually do anything with that room. And they declined. They did not. He is currently coming off the board as pick 76, so he's running back 27. So you're picking him up start of the 7th round for somebody who is going to be the RB1 in their team. No, I don't think. I think he's going to get points through just pure. He is going to get the touches, and if he can try and keep the fumbles to a minimum, which has obviously been a big issue of his throughout the years, I think he just keeps getting touches. I don't see. I see the Bears taking a bit of a step forward this year, but I don't see it being the huge leap many of the denizens of Chicago feels coming. But I think Swift will be a part of that. The Bears line has got better, and Swift has shown that he can operate if he's got a decent line in front of him. Okay, Brett, I don't feel as sick anymore. I've said the bit. I've somehow said that DeAndre Swift is a worthwhile fantasy asset. Let's move on to players that are far more interesting. Stu, make Dan feel good about the year.
Okay, yeah, so my sleeper pick, and I actually believe he's going to do generally pretty well, and it's not just I'm going to pick a backup guy that might steal a guy's job. Or like previously, I would always be picking Chuba, Brian, like late in drafts. So I kept going like, he's going to outplay his ADP. I know he's going to do it, and he did. This year, though, for my sleeper, I'm going to go with a guy who always underperformed for some reason in Denver, Javonte Williams. I think that this time, just being in that offense with Dak, for the Cowboys, because Dallas has those other weapons, I think Javonte is going to get a bit more space to do his thing. He's not going to be running into stacked boxes all the time as well. So, I look at the guy and I remember what he was like in college, and I go, like, he had so much talent, and I thought it would be transferable to the NFL, and he showed flashes in Denver without ever being home run all the time. But I think for Dallas, I think that this could be a guy, like, where's he appearing in drafts, Brian? Like, probably, like, I mean, I've been getting him, like, 9th, 10th round in mocks.
Williams is currently sitting, he's running back 36. He's in the middle towards the end of the 9th round.
There you go. So I've been getting him 9th, 10th round. He's going to be the starting running back. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but that's the way it's looking to me. And should be a good offense.
Yeah, going by pre-season, he seems to be getting the majority of the snaps, and the general consensus is at the moment he will be RB1 in the team. But there is 6 of them on the roster at the moment, so we'll see how many of those 6 are still here. Jaden Blue's been getting a bit of good voices about him as well, but yeah, I think Williams is going to beat out Miles Sanders for RB1. What that means for the bigger picture of RBs remains to be seen.
Miles Sanders, who was crushed under the wheels of Chuba Hubbard, one of the many victims.
Like, I completely get on board with the bringing Jaden Blue into the conversation. I don't feel Miles Sanders is irrelevant to anything. I like just. Do you know what? It's not fair. Miles Sanders is a good NFL player. He's just a really, really bad fantasy player. He's just got no real fantasy. He's on your football team. He's actually really good. His pass pro is quite good. Anyway, Javonte, actually, for the point that Stu made at the start, actually, is why I'm on board with Javonte this year. I think it's a great sleeper pick because Dallas has got a well-rounded offense. You can't stack a box against a team that's got CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, and Jake Ferguson on it as receiving options. It's just not a wise move. I think he could actually come really good. Right, on to, of all of these picks, as much as I've enjoyed Javonte, of all of these picks, the one that, despite who he plays for, I'm actually most excited to see play. Dan, take it away with the final running back sleeper, mate.
Yeah, so when I got to this, there was a few that I was considering going with. Marion Hampton was one of them, but I thought he's probably too high to be a sleeper. He's going to do really well. I thought it was Cam Scatterbo, but not sure how he's going to adapt to the NFL. But I've went with Caleb Johnson at the Steelers as my sleeper pick. Steelers, as we know, seem to be able to win games somehow and get winning seasons. But we've seen them with 2 running backs in the past, with Warren and Najee Harris, where they've managed to get both of them to work as a tandem. Very similar to what the Lions do, but it's just who's going to get the most production off that. And I think Caleb Johnson's a good sleeper to have. He's a good backup running back to have, and your team is one of the ones that could, after 3 or 4 weeks, have a breakout week and suddenly become. But I mentioned in episode 1 about those players after weeks 1 and week 2, you want to pick up the waiver wire. They could have a breakout. I think Johnson's one of those players that give him a couple of games that could suddenly break out. So you don't want to have to rely on picking up the waiver wire, because if you're anywhere near the top of your league, you're not going to get him. So if you can get him late in the draft or kind of middle of the draft, I think he's a good. I don't know. Again, it depends how you draft, but he could be a good RB2 or potential RB3, depends who you've picked before, to have on your roster, to have in your bench to start with. But I think he'll go on and have a good season.
See, I am totally on board with this. I think you're going to run into problems if you draft him needing him to perform straight away, because Warren exists and he's not going to supplant him straight away. But I do think you're right. I think by the time you're getting week 5, 6, 7, I think you're going to see they're going to want to use him more. Tell you what, a question for both of you then. You've got you're picking up a running back. Your options, these guys are all coming around about the same point in drafts. So this is pick 80, so you're middle of the 7th. Who are you taking? Are you taking Caleb? Standard redraft league, none of this dynasty chat. Caleb, Tony Pollard, or Brian Robinson? Who would you want at that value?
I'm still taking Caleb. Tony Pollard, get burnt him. He's that one breakout year with the Cowboys and then done absolutely nothing. Went to Titans, done nothing there either. So he's weird. Robinson's just so inconsistent, I think. And I know we don't know what Caleb Johnson's going to give you, but I think there's more upside having him and what he could do going into the season. I think you're more likely to get something from him maybe later in the season when you're needing towards the playoffs and your fantasy leagues and stuff like that. The Steelers should be there or thereabouts in terms of a winning season, so they should still have something to play for coming to the tail end of the season. So I would 100% Johnson every day out of the three of them.
What we used to?
Maybe actually in that case, I'm probably, again, asterisks about, depends what I did earlier in the draft kind of thing, because if I'm already sitting a couple of studs.
We'll say that at this point you need to pick up a running back.
Okay, I'm going to go with Brian Robinson then, purely because Robinson starting running back in a good offense that should be doing pretty well again this year, even if people maybe do know the book on Jaden Daniels now after his first year. But I just look at Brian Robinson, and yes, he's kind of, I don't want to say vanilla or average or anything like that for a starting running back, but I think just the amount of volume he's going to get for sure, I would rather take that consistency for the whole year. But I do totally know the upside of Caleb Johnson, and I think it's still a decent pick, I think, but I'm going Robinson.
What I find very interesting is if you look at Sleeper's ADP, they have Johnson going 10 picks before Jalen Warren on average.
Well, you've stolen my next point, because that was my next point. Because see, if you wait around-ish, you can take Warren instead. Do you? Well, right, here's the question then. This is a funny thing for everybody watching. Me and Stu do relentless amount of mock drafts, and we send them to each other constantly. And this has happened once, I think, in one of Stu's mock drafts, where he double dipped the Steelers running back room. Would you double dip? Would you go in for both? Steelers should be a functional team. They're not gonna. I don't think the Steelers are going to be great this year. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to lead them to the promised land. I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be the classic Steelers 500 or so, depending on how the rest of the AFC shakes out. They might be flirting with the playoffs. Do you go for both halves of that running game?
The one time I did it, Brian, I hated it. So I'm going to say no, and partly because of a name you just mentioned there, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, regardless of what he is told to do by coaches, is not the kind of guy that's going to go in there and do like a Kirk Cousins, like who would occasionally do it with Dalvin Cook, and just be like, you know what, for the good of the team, I'm going to be handing the ball to Dalvin Cook when it was
really talented large man.
I'm playing like I'm going to just hand it to Bijan and Algier kind of thing often here just to try and cut down on the interceptions. Aaron Rodgers is going to go out there regardless of the score. And a lot of the situations, he's going to err on the side of, I am going to pass this here. DK Metcalf is going to get the ball, or I'm going to force it to him. Muth is going to get the ball. I'm going to force it to him, kind of thing. I can't see him handing the ball off enough to make both running backs worth it. So you have to bet on the one that will work.
What I'm
and
also
maybe
going to say
Johnson.
is, I can guarantee you, as much as I know Sleeper's saying this at the moment, there's no way both of them are still available at that point in your draft either. I know on average they are, but there's no chance in a league you're going to get both of them that late. One of them's going to go a wee bit higher.
Not in real life.
Do you know?
That's
I think Warren could fall. I think Warren could fall further. We'll see. If you get some Steelers fans in your league, it will maybe change it up a bit.
Well,
But I've got a
I
feeling
think
that
Johnson goes higher than 80.
Johnson, the rookie fever will lift Johnson. And I don't know. I've got a feeling if he goes much further up than the 7th, I think a few people will maybe be bummed by Johnson. I think the draft. I think the 7th's about as expensive as I'd want to pay for him. I agree there's upside to him, but
Someone who took him in my dynasty rookie draft, I hope you're completely wrong.
Okay, folks, thank you very much. That is going to draw this episode to a close. Gents, thanks very much for joining me in this one. Make sure you tune in for the next episode. We are going to keep working our way through the rest of the position groups, and we are going to keep telling you who are the studs, who are the staples, who are the sleepers that are going to make a difference in your fantasy draft. How can you pick them up at the best value to make sure you take home a championship? Join us next time.